Okay, did everyone vote? Excellent. Okay,
Yes, I did.
great. Thank you all.
I'm
So
helping other people on the phone now.
you what?
I'm helping other people on the phone now.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. You see it yet? The
Okay, none of these are our members. Okay, so why don't we begin our meeting, our general meeting? Hi, Judy. Have you been on the whole time? I can't, there's too many people for me to see. Okay, so anything anybody feels like they need to discuss?
Mary, I just want to interrupt for a second. There are people in this chat or on the Zoom that are not voting members. You're members of the club. Is this open for everybody?
They don't need to be a voting member.
Anyone can join. Not even if they're a member.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes, we went through this last time and decided that we were open. Everyone's open for the discussion.
Okay.
Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate that. Okay, so does anyone feel like they have anything they want to discuss before they can vote, or do people vote and we just move on? I'll leave that up to the club. I guess if you feel like you have something you need to discuss, if you could raise your hand, I'll know that we need to have that conversation. And if that's not true, I'm going to move on and feel like we've had enough discussion from listening to our candidates. Okay, I see no hands, so I'm moving on. I want to invite our committees to report out. I see Sarah. I know I saw Mary Jo before. So do we want to hear from the Sustainability Committee and then we'll move on to traffic?
Sure. Mary Jo is going to kick off and we have 3 very brief, super fast updates. Take it away, Mary Jo.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm going to be very brief because William's going to get most of this. I gave a brief update in our last in-person meeting, which I think was in November, about the air quality issues going on in our neighborhood and the fact that as part of East River Park Action, we put up 5 air monitors, 4 on the east or the west side of the river and 1 on the west side or the east side. And they're purple air, and there's I can give information on how to access that information. Also, there is a state-funded study throughout the state of New York, 10 different areas of the state, 4 of which are in this the city, Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, and Brooklyn. And it's not the entire borough, but it's portions of it. And I'll put information from the last newsletter that the newsletter that I wrote for in December. I'll put a link in the chat for that so everybody can take a look at that. And you have questions, you can send us emails. So that's it.
All right. Thanks, Mary Jo. I'm going to go next with a quick note for those of you who are not familiar with Local Law 97. This is the super important legislation at the city level that would set climate pollution limits on New York City buildings. New York City buildings are the source of 70% of New York's climate pollution. That's 70. It's huge. And shifting this does a lot of good. It passed into law in 2019. Now it needs to be funded and enforced. The mayor is key to getting this done well, and this is where we can help and we can be useful. A coalition of groups, including NYPIRG and New York Communities for Change, has organized a letter writing campaign to Mayor Adams. Anyone who identifies as a community leader is invited to sign on. You don't have to be a big shot to do this. You can identify as a community leader in many ways, as a member of Grand Street Democrats, as a teacher, a parent, a student, member of a sports team, faith organization, you name it. We're trying to get up to 1,000 signatures. There's about 700 right now. We can do a lot here. Please consider adding yours, and I'll drop a link in the chat to that and to some background information on the law. And now I will give the stage to William, who's going to take this citywide legislation into the super, super local level. William.
Thank you, Sarah. Our buildings being over 25,000 square feet, which is the limit, forces us to seek compliance with Local Law 97. That will start to be where we record fossil fuel emissions by each building, and then report it to the Department of Buildings, and then they can assess a fine if you're not complying. But the super hyper local part of that is that with the ESCR, first I'll explain, there's a confluence of the Resilience Project and Local Law 97. I'll get to that. The Resiliency Project has conveyances of water, surface water, that are going to come from the south and go north. And one of them goes underneath Lewis Street, starting at Grand. It's a 4-foot diameter concrete pipe that pushes water down the hill. That will intersects with utilities coming from the East River power plant. So that's a direct confluence. The power plant supplies steam to several co-ops in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to bring that up for people. So at some point, DOT is going to be digging up Lewis Street to do this conveyance. And it's not started, and I'm trying to get more information on that. But that's as much as I know at the moment. But back to the bigger picture, the issue of the Local Law 97 has to do, the compliance issues have to do with how each of our buildings stay efficient. So you may have read the New York Times yesterday about the induction stoves versus gas stoves. For our buildings to be compliant, domestic gas is a very low-hanging fruit to get rid of. And by doing that, you can potentially get easier compliance. So that is, you can see the crux of where we're going with this. There's other things that have to happen. Steam heat, for example, is 40%, if not, well, about 40% inefficient. So all of our buildings have steam heat, but that's really not helping any of us. So that also comes back to the steam plant that several of us rely on. So these things are going to become more and more important. They're inevitable. One of the articles that Sarah might post again is something where the city is getting behind this, meaning there'll be ways for the city to slow this down so that property owners can get up to speed, get their resources, but there'll also be pushback by the real estate industry because they do not want to have to do any of this. And a lot of this means jobs and changing the infrastructure and engineering in all of our buildings. That is really critical if we want to commit to a climate change and deal with this issue. That is basically what I have to share. But there'll be more to follow very soon. That's as much as I can speak about at the moment.
So, William, thank you very much for that. Will you be sending information so that we can be keeping people updated on all of these?
Yes, I think there'll be a moment in the month or so when I think I can do a report, and maybe we can get that. Sarah and I can work on something to keep people aware of that directly, like when will the Lewis Street be dug up, or any other
Great.
changes that we have discovered are about to happen.
Thank you very much. Lee, I see your hand up. Do you have a question about this?
I do. And
Okay.
this is for both William and Sarah. So William, you mentioned, for example, the low-hanging fruit as part of Local Law 97. And while I think that we are all in favor of the goals of Local Law 97, my question is, how are our neighbors, how are we supposed to pay for this? My understanding is that there are extremely heavy fines if buildings are not in compliance, and many of our developments cannot get into compliance immediately. So, for example, Hillman, perhaps maybe even Amalgamated, don't have the electrical capacity to get rid of gas, and it will cost every shareholder not just thousands, but apparently tens of thousands of dollars to go from gas to bring in new wires, to literally upgrade, a 50, 70, 80-year-old building to new electric to be able to handle induction. Moving from steam will require millions of dollars. So I have not heard of anything from NYSERDA, from New York State, or from New York City to help residents, whether renters or shareholders, so that these lofty goals can be reached without forcing them to move. Have you guys, are either of you aware of anything like that? Thank you.
Well, I will start. I am, because I'm involved heavily in my own building, the amalgamated issues, and this is a huge capital improvement that everyone has to look at. I will say, and this the general parlance, because I'll explain who you can speak to, anyone can call and check in with, is the accelerator program. But basically, there will be the issue of showing good faith effort will be the critical demarcation. What does that mean? That means, I think, when you file your admissions, and if you are showing that you're making the best efforts and trying to get this moving, I don't know what that threshold is or what that means per se. But once you show that, I think that will give you the time to get there. In terms of paying for it, I think I've asked Con Ed about this, and they said that there are some things that they're planning to have incentives, and I think there'll be other ones, but it's really not settled yet. And I think it's since it was only decided in 2019, I think there's still a little bit of a chaos of a kind that I've noticed. And I think this incentive thing is something I continually ask about, and that seems to be that stuff will be happening. I just don't think any of it's clear enough yet. That's my sense. I haven't done more on that, but that's my idea. I would check in with the accelerator program, and that's a program set up and paid for by the city to help buildings deal with this. I've been in touch with them 8 times already. I meet with an engineer, and I have a specific role in my co-op for that. But I think you can reach out to them and they could help you understand more of that, Lee, if you wanted to look at it in terms of the East River.
Thank you.
Thank you, William, very much for that. Mary Jo.
I have a question about the ginormous water pipe that's going to come down Lewis. Where does it, I live in East River, so where does it originate, and does it come through East River? How does it get to Lewis Street?
It's a little bit, it's not easy to discern. I looked at the map. There's these weird little pieces of pipe that have to go in, meaning I think there's a system that's not great, that's partially there, and they need to connect a few bits of it, and then it'll function better. The other thing would be there might be some other way that they expect water to come from Grand under the bridge. That might be even just surface water, but that this will be gathering just that little bit of it to streamline it. So it's part of a bigger system, but and that's the only way that the way I heard the way it was told to me. And if you look at a map, you can go to the ESCR updates, and you'll see these conveyances, and they're these tiny little red dots that are in our district, that are these little localized places where we're going to dig it up and put in a pipe or do some other kind of infrastructure.
Okay,
Wow.
then can I ask another question, Marion, or is anybody else
Sure.
waiting?
Yeah, no, go ahead. We have one other person.
For funding issues, the climate initiative, the climate plan that was just passed federally, the climate money, could any of that come to help all of the co-ops or all the buildings too? Because Lee, I don't think we have money to do this either.
I think we should all reach out to Grace Lee, and I've asked her that question. I think that, well, that's a state issue, but you did told me that there's money that the state will get from the federal program, and that they need to find ways to use that. I don't know how it can be applied here. That's a whole level of administration that I can't speak to, but I think Grace Lee is someone that I was going to speak to about that. And maybe Chris could have an idea too about it in terms of how to connect back to the federal.
Grace will be attending our February meeting, so that'll be a good question to ask her then. Laura.
William, I don't know if you know or not, but like talking about you said, and I believe that heating a building with steam is not efficient. However, how switching, would that involve replacing all the radiators?
This is a really hard thing to look at. Yes, just to get it out there, I think in the end, in a 5 to 10 year model, if things move and these laws start to take traction, steam will have to be replaced. What will it be replaced with? as Lee was saying, you have to upgrade your power system. So all our buildings are underserved, the co-ops at least that I know of. So we are looking at this now of upgrading all our power. And what does that do? Then you get heat pumps and equipment on your roof and in your cellar, let's say, and that can help you heat your and cool your house. You'll get air conditioning with that via air. And I can go further into that. However, it doesn't help us understand how to get rid of the steam, but ultimately the steam heating will in the end go away. How fast? We don't know. So it's a big question. Again, a lot rides on what Sarah raised, which is how fast, what kind of enforcement is going to happen? And that will play out over time. Right now, it's very hard to see how fast that will go. That's my sense of it.
Thank you, William. We'll look forward to being updated about this. Okay, moving on. Traffic report.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. If you give me a second, just because the graphics might be more helpful. Hold on, let me just, okay. So can everyone see that map?
No.
No. Okay, let me try this again. Sorry, it's share. Oh, okay, I see. Now?
Yep.
Okay, so in December, the Department of Transportation returned to the community board with basically the same plan that they had last year for the Clinton Street, Grand Street sort of intersection and the entrance to the Williamsburg Bridge. The difference here is a little bit more detail and there's better graphics. So I thought I'd bring it to people so they have a better mental model of what's going on. This is the basic plan, is that right now, just to orient everyone, this is Trader Joe's, this is Target, this is the old Rite Aid. So the problem is, as we experience, a lot of people come from the FDR Drive and they try to make the right onto Clinton to go up to the Williamsburg Bridge. At the same time, people are coming up straight. They often come from the FDR Drive, get off South Street, and then try to come up Clinton Street, go to the bridge. And we often see gridlock and a lot of pedestrian threatening behavior by drivers, how they drive and stuff like that. So the DOT plan is essentially to not allow people to make the right from Grand and to force them to go 2 blocks down the Grand Street, essentially kicking the 4-wheeled tin cans down the road. And they go down here, and what they're claiming is, since Norfolk Street is 2 lanes, now once they finish all the construction, and if they take away the parking spots that are on Norfolk Street here, it could be 2 lanes. They can move a lot more traffic. That'll go right up into Delancey Street, and also 2 lanes can turn here, because for pedestrians, there's no crosswalk here. The crosswalk is there. So they're saying that they would free them to go up. They're also claiming that if they don't allow right-hand turns here from Grand Street, it'll be safer for pedestrians there. So that's what they're planning. There's a couple other issues. They have said that they will put a stoplight here at the corner of Broome and Clinton, though they can do that now, but they're essentially holding a stoplight hostage for the whole plan to be approved. And this is a little bit more detail so people can see. Again, this is the old Rite Aid. This is Trader Joe's. This is Clinton. What they do here is cars coming from the FDR Drive come this way. None of them can make a right-hand turn. The idea is that this little pedestrian, whatever you want, a platform would keep them from making a right-hand turn. And so they will go straight down Grand Street this way to make the right onto Norfolk, or they could turn left to go down Clinton Street. They will put the bike lane, for those of you who are bike riders, they will put the bike lane next to the sidewalk, which is a little better than what they have now, which puts you right in the middle of the traffic lanes. And they're gonna make this be commercial loading, which those of us who pay attention know that the lack of commercial loading is a problem, because there's a lot of that double parking or parking in the bike lanes. So this pedestrian platform is actually new. They hadn't really shown this to us. They claimed they were going to have some measure. So this makes the plan a little better, and the bike lane. Essentially, though, they said if the community board didn't approve this plan, the DOT wasn't going to do anything until congestion pricing came in, and then they were going to redo their analysis and decide what they were going to do. So there were people in the community board who said, well, let's try something. And there were people who were against it, but eventually it passed because the feeling was the current situation is untenable. Maybe this plan will fix things. I'm not convinced, but that's sort of the situation. But, I'm not in the community board, and they basically, voted it through. So the other issue is we just don't know when the DOT is going to start it. They've gotten the approval, but the DOT is basically a administrative department in the city that's adrift. So we don't see anything sort of happening soon. So that's basically it. There was a couple minor things we've asked for that still hasn't happened. Those of you who live farther down, farther east on Grant Street know that the area of Grant Street by Jackson and Madison remains a hazard, and we've asked the council member Marte's land use guy who to contact DOT to get them to put some quick curbs in there. Apparently, the quick curbs were promised back when Margaret Chin was still city council member, and the DOT just hasn't done it. So one last thing, we still try to organize, though this is probably a back burner. We're probably not going to get much movement until DOT decides to do something. But if anyone does care to join the traffic working group, it's nonpartisan, or if you know people, just point your phones at this QR code. It'll get you to a little sign-up sheet that you can join with us. And I think that's all I have, unless people have questions, so I can stop the share. And
Okay, well, I see some hands, so
Wait, Bill,
Sandra?
Bill, don't stop the share for a minute.
Okay, hold on.
I have surgery, so I have to put my mask on.
Okay.
So, I'm on community board. I'm Sandra. So Bill is right about our vote. The vote was very, very close. I was actually against it because I live on Broome Street where the proposed stop sign is supposed to go. Bill, could you go up a little bit so I could show people?
You mean on Zoom it?
Yeah.
No, the one before.
The Brown
Oh.
Street.
The first slide.
This one. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because the problem is that for us, if you look at the corner of Clinton and Broome, in order for me to get home, I can only make a right turn at Broome Street. And there's a NYCHA building there, and there's another small private building. And the only way I can get home is by making that right. So what they're going to do, Bill, am I correct? They're stopping all turns.
Right. So if you're on Grand Street, you will no longer be allowed to make this right-hand turn.
And the
So
first
you'll have to
turn
go down to here.
But Broome Street doesn't go right.
Right. At this point, Broome Street, for those of you
Goes
who
west.
don't drive or walk over here, Broome Street is one way towards the east here. But for
Right.
2 blocks, it's one way towards the west here.
Right. So
Between Clinton and Norfolk, it's one way in the opposite direction. And then at Norfolk Street, it goes back to being one way towards the east there. It's very confusing driving.
So the thing is that for me to get home via Clinton Street, I have one on the alternative, Ridge Street. But the people that live there at the corner building cannot make a right turn. Let me say, they can travel to Clinton Street, but we have to go as far as Madison Street. Is that the first time we can turn onto Clinton? So it was a very close vote at community board, just like Christopher just mentioned a little while ago, though. It's a pilot program. We're willing to check, they're gonna have intermittent, DOT is gonna have intermittent, conversations with the neighborhood, with the neighbors to see how it's going. Yeah, right. But, the other suggestion that was really good is why not reverse the traffic on Suffolk Street? Right? If we make Suffolk a thoroughway to the bridge swell, right? Make it go north. You know what I'm saying? But Christopher is willing to help with any other suggestions that we come up with.
But Sandra, that still wouldn't help your problem of trying to drive home.
Exactly. They're gonna have to change the direction of Broome Street.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. But that's all I want to say. But it was a very narrow vote.
I mean, and some of you who are regular attendees in the meetings know this, but the DOT, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Buildings do not speak to each other, because for the Department of Building to allow the Rollins to put a truck loading dock here right on the main drag and by the bicycle lanes on Clinton Street, and then the Department of Buildings also allowed a truck dock here in the new building at Essex Crossing, which means that anytime a big truck has to come in here, this traffic get backed up. It's, and
there's a senior
Okay, I'm gonna ask us to move on. We have a couple more hands up.
Can you put the QR code back up?
I'm sorry?
Can you
QR
put
code
the
back up,
QR
please.
code back
Oh,
up?
yeah, okay.
Lee, you're up.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for putting
Thank
this
you.
together and leading this. One thing that you did not mention is something that was added by the community board that was not part of the original proposal for the pilot by DOT, which is to pedestrianize a portion of Broome Street from Essex, which means because there are because of a couple of virulent anti-car folks on the community board who decided to pedestrianize or stop cars from going down Essex Street, all the vehicles coming from the north, coming down Essex Street, will now be coming down to Grand Street and making a left turn onto Norfolk Street. So exactly, if you could show that. And now there will be a confluence at the corner of Grand and Norfolk from cars heading east and cars heading west, cars coming south. And that is going to really screw things up even worse. Thankfully, Chris, 15 or 20 minutes ago, said that as part of this pilot, he thinks it's important to get the input from the Grand Street Guild residents and the Grand Street in the Seward Park Extension residents. I'm not sure if he's aware of this addition by the community board to the pilot program, which is going to severely affect everybody who lives in this community. So I, along with Sandra, and I hope you will as well, hope to bring this to his attention so that the DOT does not implement this horrific asinine idea, which will only screw up the neighborhood even further.
Thanks, Lee. I'm going to keep moving on if it's okay. We're running very short on time.
Okay.
Mary Jo?
I have some of the same thoughts as Sandra, but I'm just gonna email Bill. But Lee, are you saying that that's part of the pilot program to make Broome Street a pedestrian, or is that a proposal?
It was not part of the DOT's pilot. It was added in by the community board and approved by the community.
And so does DOT have to accept that?
They don't have to, but it appears that they will.
Oh, God.
See, Lee, I didn't include it because my impression has been so far the DOT hasn't included anything the community's asked for, so they wouldn't start now.
Well, I think when it comes down to blocking vehicles, blocking cars from moving anywhere, I think they'll jump onto that.
Okay, well, please, everybody who really cares so much about this, get active. If you're not already in the traffic committee, get Chris involved. I think that's really important. It's already We're recording. I don't care. It's already a shit show. It sounds like it's about to get worse. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But I'm going to move on. Is that okay? We're enough bad news. I want to announce that our February meeting is February 13th from 7 to 9. The agenda will be sent out and the link. I think we're going to stay until the weather warms up a little bit. We're going to stay on Zoom for one more month, just because, you know, this spike in COVID doesn't seem to be quite over yet. We've invited Grace Lee, Dan Goldman, and Brian Kavanaugh to come to that meeting to give us updates about where things are since they've been elected or reelected. So that will happen. And we will also talk more about the election district. Sandra, I'm going to give it to you to give us a brief update about petitioning, but not just yet. So that's really what we intend to do in February. The things, so tonight we're going to announce our endorsement for city council. We have what else is coming up in elections is 2 district leaders. To my knowledge, there are current district leaders, Lee Berman as the male and Carolyn Laskow as the female. If there's anybody else challenging, I haven't heard about it. That doesn't mean it's not. We're going to be putting on our petitions county committee members. If I'm going to send out an email to all current county committee members to see if you're interested in remaining on the committee. If you are not on county committee and you are interested in being considered, please let me know because there will be a few slots open to fill. So I would appreciate that. Catherine Freed is working on talking to people about, yes, being judicial delegates and alternates. So Catherine, are you still on? I saw she was on before.
Yep, I'm still on.
Anything about that we should know about?
No, I'll be contacting everyone who did it before. If anybody else is interested, please just email me.
Will you put your email in the chat in case anyone doesn't have it?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, and Sandra, talk to us about what's coming up in terms of electioning, and I will talk to you then about judicial candidates.
So basically petitioning starts February 28th. But we should have our petitions into the printer by the 21st. But now, once we have the results of the endorsement tonight, and we know that there's only the 2 district leaders, we're good to go. Basically, the county members' names don't get on the petitions like we did last year. We had stickers, right? And we put the stickers on, okay? So we don't have to worry about actually having the name, and you know, everything just gets sent to the printer. What I would suggest is that maybe like March 4th or 5th, we have that kickoff again, the petitioning kickoff. That's like 1 week after petitioning starts on the 28th. So maybe the 4th or 5th at Salugis again.
Right.
Basically it. We're in really good shape.
I forgot about the stickers. That's very helpful. Mm-hmm. Now, what about, do our judicial candidates go on our petitions? Or is that?
I don't know if there are any judges. Should be. I'm
sorry,
sorry,
Catherine. Let's ask Catherine because.
Yeah, the civil court candidates do go on the petition.
Judicial delegates, Mary, judicial delegates.
No, I'm talking about the judge candidates right now.
For civil court and municipal court, which is the same thing. Civil court is countywide, municipal court is local. I believe we have one local that's opening, one local opening, and I'm not sure how many countywide, 1 or 2. And they will be on during the primary. But the Supreme Court the Supreme Court judges are nominated through the judicial convention. So that's why you have the judicial delegates and alternate petition.
But we actually endorse the two positions that are open, the countywide and the District 1.
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. So Sandra, we're not as done as you think we are, but we're getting there. I actually spoke to somebody today. The West Side Dems are doing a forum for county, and I asked if we could be included in that. And after we're included, we'll have a recording to put up on our site, so whoever can't make it can look at the recording. And I believe the district leaders have already been invited to that. Is that right, Carolyn Lee? Yeah. Okay. So, but I've asked that that the Grant Street Dems can be invited as well. And it looks like they're considering it, so I don't have an answer. And we don't even know who's running. I have some names, but they're all kind of wild cards for District 1. So we will keep you updated. Hopefully we'll have more information at our February meeting on that.
Yeah, I think Allison, who's been coming around, is running in our district.
She's running for county.
Is she count? Okay.
She's county.
Okay. But we have to endorse in that anyway.
Right.
I think we're in the 2nd municipal district.
I think we're in the 1st, but can you clarify that for me, please?
Sure.
Thank you. That would be very helpful, because if we're in the 2nd, there's no one running. It's 1st, 3rd, and 6th.
Okay. I don't know if we may overlap in the 1st.
I think so, but please check that for me. You're our judicial expert.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We also have I think that's it with elections. So we'll have a kickoff. We'll invite people like we have done in the past. We'll have pizza. We'll get together, and then we'll get out on the streets and get signatures. Julie, do you want to talk to us about Welcome Wednesdays and what's coming up?
Sure. We skipped Welcome Wednesdays in January because it felt like COVID was at its peak. So we're going to resume Welcome Wednesdays on Wednesday, the 8th at Minutia, 403 Grand Street. We have an RSVP set up through Eventbrite. Tickets are free. We'll cover a few hors d'oeuvres and things like that, and drinks are on you. And we hope to see you guys there. And we've had 2 and they were wonderful. And I think it's what people have been asking for. There's people coming in, hanging out and just shooting the breeze, talking about the world and the community. It's actually really nice.
You said the 15th, Julie?
No, it's this February 8th, Wednesday the 8th.
Okay, February 8th, okay.
Yeah, they're really nice. It's a great way to just hang out with people and discuss things in a less formal manner and get some food. The last one, there was lots of food because the food is quite inexpensive there at Jaguar El Castillo.
Oh,
what
one more
time is
thing.
it?
Oh,
What time is it, Julie?
6 o'clock. And I meant to say that it worked out nicely because we can all go en masse to the community precinct meeting nearby. So we show up en masse. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for keeping on that and keep getting us the graphics and doing all that. I really appreciate that. Any other business that anyone wants to bring up? Kenny, I don't know if everybody's voted yet, so we have an answer. It's not quite 9 o'clock. I guess we're not going to turn it off till 9, right?
I don't know if everyone's voted until 9 o'clock.
Right. Okay. Okay. So anything else? Do we actually, I forgot to ask Carolyn if there were any district leader reports, any new information that we should know about from those positions?
There was a meeting of the Manhattan Democrats with Jay Jacobs to go over the horrendous operation of the state Democratic Party at our last election. And the upshot of that is Jay Jacobs thinks he did nothing wrong, and it did not fall on his sword, and expect more of the same.
Carolyn, anything from your position?
No, I was not able to attend that meeting last week, but that's the report I got that, there was no responsibility taken. But, and there are a group of district leaders, Lee and I are among them, who are still working to try to really massively reform the New York State Democratic Party from the top down. So stay tuned.
It's like traffic and steam heat and everything else we've been discussing. We have some big tasks ahead of us. That is the, Val just asked where the restaurant is. The name of it's Manusha on Grant Street.
It's by the Citibank, sort of between the Citibank and the wine shop on between Clinton and North and Suffolk on Grand.
They have excellent baklava. They have lots of good stuff, but they have excellent baklava.
It's next to Saluti's, right?
Is it next to or one store away? It's right there anyway.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah. Lauda, hand up.
Yeah, when we wait for 9 o'clock, I was just curious to ask Lee and Caroline, how far away or close are we to reform our party at the state level?
What?
Can you repeat that? I'm not sure I understood.
So sorry, we were talking about the Democratic Party in New York State. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, and so like it looks like there's something wrong with it, and you mentioned that there's some efforts to reform it, and I was curious to know how close and how close are we to reform it? What's in the way of reforming it?
Well, I do think it's kind of starts from the top down. The governor is not really interested in reforming the state, nor is the chair of the New York State Dems interested in reform. And the truth is that Democrats in New York State, that covers a really broad range of the political spectrum. I mean, it's not obviously all New York City or even lower Manhattan. And so as broken as it looks to a lot of us, it's a big party and we don't have like the numbers at the moment. It's going to be a long process. I think if we could get a new governor in, that would be really significant. And that's a long ways away as well. Which is, it's going to be a long process. I think. I don't know, Lee, what's your take?
As a former state committee member, I don't see anything changing anytime soon. As Carolyn mentioned, New York City is its own unique Democratic Party. Upstate, the rest of the state, not so much. So I think they're happy with Jay Jacobs, with the state party. And as Carolyn mentioned, I think it really does require a change from the top down, which includes an effort by the governor, which is not happening now.
Thank you.
And I think, I think, look, we have a newly elected congressperson, everyone just ran for election, and almost everyone's running for re-election very soon. And even though Congress and Senate, they're not directly responsible for how the state party is run, I think it's helpful to voice concerns around how these elections went. The congressional map is totally screwed, largely because of New York State. And, I think that's one thing to do is to talk, next week, Dan Goldman's coming, Brian Kavanaugh's coming, Grace is coming, let's tell them.
Well, 3 weeks, but soon.
Oh, sorry, in 3 weeks. Our next general meeting, they're coming. And I think that's hopefully useful input from the club.
Thank you. Catherine, I see your hand.
Yeah, I thought it's probably worth mentioning since we were talking about judges. And since Grand Street had signed on to the letter, we'd initially signed a letter asking the governor not to appoint chief judge with a prosecutorial background, for those of you who've been following it. She did appoint LaSalle
Mhm.
as her for the chief judge position. And he was defeated in the committee level of the state Senate. And right now, I think I don't think she's withdrawn it yet. She was considering if she wanted to push a full vote out of the Senate, because arguably, depending on how you read the state Senate, the state constitution, it does talk about the advice and consent of the Senate. It doesn't talk about an individual committee. So I'm not sure that's particularly wise in her part, but there was a lot of the reform clubs, and specifically a lot of the unions were very opposed to LaSalle. So we're waiting to hear to see what she's going to do, and then I guess we'll move on that.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy.
Yeah,
Again.
change. Yeah.
Does anyone have any updates that are just like calm and oh good, year of the rabbit type of updates that are about peace and prosperity and kindness?
I bet Kenny has one.
Does he?
Do I?
Are you ready?
Chris Marte won our endorsement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I also want to thank Kenny. Kenny puts the OPA votes together, checks them out, does the, does the numbers for us. I really appreciate that, Kenny.
Thank you, Kenny.
Right. Maybe
Julie, are you clapping your hands or is your hand up?
I'm doing both. I'm clapping.
Okay, clapping and
I'm
hand
raising
up.
my hand. Okay. So I wanted to just put another happy piece of news out for everybody on February 4th in Chinatown is called Super Saturday. It's not run by any organization. Just go into Chinatown and you will be surrounded by dozens and dozens of line dance troops that come out, and the streets will be flooded, even more so than Lunar New Year yesterday. So just come on out and check it out. All right.
What date is it?
Saturday, the 4th.
We'll be out of town.
Like 11 o'clock till 1 o'clock, that window of time. Any street in Chinatown, you'll see dozens of dance troops. It'll be pretty animated.
Excellent. Thank you. The opening ceremony was wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
William, hand up.
Hi, I just wanted to say, if you haven't noticed, Pier 42, which is part of a park below the East River ESCR, opened. And I'm out there sometimes 4 times a day with my dog. They've returned the lights at night next to the ferry terminal. So it's a little less dodgy at night, but it's an amazing little bit of our neighborhood that's around. It's worth checking it out at night. The views looking south, and because there's not a lot of ambient light behind you, you get a very clear view. And as well, the field is amazing. I don't know if you've been out there, but the beautiful soccer field. Officially, I'm not supposed to endorse dogs going there, but if you go early enough, they love it. They really like to roll in that turf for some reason. So I think that's a really beautiful thing that's happened.
It's great. Thank you. Anyone else have anything they want to get in? I want to thank you all. Catherine, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just wanted to say Kung Hei Fat Joy, Happy Lunar New Year to everyone who celebrates. Happy
Thank
Year.
you.
All right.
William, you have your hand up? No? Okay. So good night, everyone. Thank you for your participation, for us moving forward, for our endorsement of Chris. I just texted him so he'll know. And we'll see you on February 13th. No, we'll see you first on February 8th. Okay.
Thank you, Marion.
Thank you, Marion.
Thank you all. Thanks for all your help and support.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Great week.